Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today we're doing a Should You Back It on Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the board game from Arcan Games. Currently on Kickstarter with 2 days left to go. There's not going to be a ton of time left to check this out, although there likely will be a late pledge as there usually is, and I'm going to go ahead and dive into it and check out all the various stuff and timestamps down below and all that. But first, for some other suggested viewing, in case you want to go through a little sequence of the various things that might help you decide whether this is or isn't a game for you, first of all, I recommend the How to Play and Overview from On Table Board Games. Fantastic channel, does a great how to play overall, 18 minutes, quick and fast, tells you everything you need to know about the game. From there, you can check out a gameplay over on Quackalope, 2 hours and 20 minutes long, checking out Jesse and Wes playing through the experience, having fun at it. You can get a sense and a feel of how it actually play. From there, you can move to a review, a speed review from the King of Average. He'll give you, in 7 minutes, he'll give you the highs, the lows, the things that worked for him and the things that he has doubts upon. And then finally, when you need everything tempered down a bit, you can check out the 5 reasons not to back it from Room and Board. All 4 of these fantastic channels, all 4 of them giving you different aspects and things that will help you decide whether this is or isn't a game for you. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into, now that I've made this video irrelevant because you have all the stuff you need, let's go ahead and dive into Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the board game from Arcan Games. 19,000 backers, 19,000, that's a large number, $2.8 million. This is doing incredibly well with 2 days to go. And this is Arcan Games bringing Ubisoft's Heroes of Might and Magic to your table, to your physical tabletop, Heroes of Might and Magic 3 specifically speaking. This is a game that's going to be very reminiscent of Mage Knight. If you've played Mage Knight, or even if you've played Euthia, it's going to have that aspect of wandering around a board, wandering around a map, interacting with various locations as you power up and level up your hero. The general gameplay is going to have it, you're going to be picking a scenario you're going into, and there are a lot of changes or options from co-op to solo to, actually I don't know if there's co-op, there's competitive, there's solo, there's a bunch of modules, there's a battlefield, there's a bunch of expansions. We're not heavily getting into it. This campaign based. We'll talk about various things, but the general idea is you're going to pick a scenario, you're going to pick your hero, you're going to wander around the board starting to level up your hero, interacting with various locations across a set number of rounds depending on the scenario, frequently engaging in combat with either the other player or the AI monsters as you interact with various locations, which will take you to a separate battle board. Let's see if we can find the separate battle board. You're going to go from the wandering around the map to a separate battle board aspect where, if we can find it, here we go, to a separate battle board where you're going to have your cards set up, the army you've created, and the army you've upgraded and leveled up and figured out how to, what combination is going to work for you. As you navigate around that battle board, trying to combine a degree of lane battling card combat with a degree of exploration and RPG elements as you go through the experience with the general goal of trying to win the scenario. That's basically the core idea of what's going on in Heroes of Might and Magic. You're going to have leveling up your heroes, ways to augment their hand size, ways to augment their abilities, to power up their deck, to get more and more equipment and things that will help you out. You're going to be trying to run around the board, interact with various locations, exploring the map as you go through it, and it's going to be giving you all of that general RPG combat battle in, well, this giant game with tons of expansions, tons of everything else going on. Again, you can check out the on-table preview for more of an in-depth aspect of how some of these things work, as well as the Quackalope gameplay for just seeing it all in action, seeing the battle, seeing the exploration, seeing the entire experience in action. As far as the actual pledge levels over here, we're going to have a few options for the pledge levels, but starting off, we have the Zero Pledge Explained, which to skip that over there. We have a few pledge levels. We have the core game over here, which is going to run you, that basic pledge is going to run you $79 for the basic pledge, giving you the core game and the non-Azure stretch goals. This is a thing to keep into account as you go through it. Some of the, anything marked with a star is only going to be relevant for some of the higher pledges, so you want to factor that in. The basic pledge, $79, will not get you that. But for $79, you're going to be getting all of this. You're going to be getting the core game, the 20 map tiles, the miniatures, the not the castle models over here. These are going to be specific miniatures, the hero models, but not the castle models, the dungeon models. These are all stretch goals for the Azure, for the non-Azure, for the Azure pledges or whatnot. We have the cards, the various cards, all the various hero cards, the equipment cards, the tokens, all the things over there, the town boards. All this stuff is going to be in their core pledge, and then from there we get into the Battlefield expansion. But before we get to that, first of all, the Azure pledge at $124, so basically an extra $40-ish or so, an extra $44 will get you all those miniatures we scrolled past in that pledge over there. So those extras, you know, the 7 castle models, the dungeon models, and the Necropolis models, those are all going to be extras for that Azure pledge over there. From there we start going to the Grail Pledge, which is going to start giving you the expansions. Now the expansions are things you can buy separately on their own, so you can mix and match the core game plus whatever expansion you want. But if you want bundle pledges, it's going to be the Grail Pledge for $177, and then the Collector's Pledge for $208. The difference between those two is going to be the art book and posters. So if you want the art book and posters, yes, by all means get that extra expansion over there. But otherwise, if you just care about the gameplay and that's all you care about, then you want to focus on the Grail Pledge for $177 over there, plus of course shipping and all that. But as far as that, we have the Battlefield expansion. The Battlefield expansion is going to be one of the bigger expansions that change up the gameplay experience, not just giving you more, but giving you a very different way to interact with the game, because the Battlefield expansion is going to take the battle aspects of this game to the next level with a full hex-based battle map. This entire battle map is going to be a much more in-depth version of playing through the combat system of Heroes of Might and Magic. So if that's an element that appeals to you, then you're going to want to dive into the Battlefield map, which will just take it to the next level, just giving you, again, that one aspect of the game, but much more heavily focused, giving you a lot of options as far as how to play through the game. We'll have the Tower expansion, which is going to give you more content, just more miniatures, more content, more cars. The Rampart expansion, again, more cars, more tiles, more miniatures, a whole bunch of things. The Rampart units, all these dragons. Miniatures will come unpainted. I believe they come assembled. I'm pretty sure they do. Arcane Games has not always done assembled miniatures, but I believe they've more and more moved towards that as they've developed as a company. I think originally they had Unicast originally, then they temporarily did some assembled miniatures. They have a whole line of, of terrain and things that they do, but this is more the board game. We have the Fortress expansion. Again, more content over here. And these three expansions, the Fortress Rampart and Tower expansion, are all going to be in part of your pledges over there, which is actually worth focusing on. That Tower expansion is not listed in this sidebar over here, but as part of the core pledges over there, you are going to be getting the Tower expansion as part of, I believe, the higher pledges. I believe not the base pledge, but I have to double check that. That's what we have as far as those three expansions: the Tower, the Fortress, and the Rampart expansion, as well as the Battlefield expansion, giving you all that content there. And from there we dive into the videos and all the content around the game. Now, a quick summary of the various game elements, various content, a bunch of things to take into account as you go through this. First of all, like I mentioned already, there's a variety of game modes at play. A thing that I do want to focus on specifically from the King of Averages review. I have not played this game, so take this into account, but specifically from both watching Cracklove's gameplay and from the King of Averages review, I think it is worth noting that solo and two-player might be the best way to experience this game. Solo, because you actually have that solo campaign progression, that idea of being able to just go through the experience, that leveling up, that RPG element, and just doing your own little puzzle and having fun at it. And two-player, because whenever there's a combat in the game, you're always involving another player, and once you get to 3 and 4 players, you're going to have people who are kind of sitting by the sidebars watching combats progress as they kind of wait for things to resolve, which isn't necessarily the best experience. You do want to take that into account, as if you're buying this as a 3 or 4 player game. I highly recommend watching part of, Cracklove's gameplay to get a sense or feel, and watching the King of Averages review to be able to see that, because I think it's very worth noting that the way the game is set up, the way everything is structured, is any combat is going to slow down the game for anyone except for the 2 players involved, and you have to decide and figure out if that is something that is okay with you and your group or whoever you're playing with it. Past that, as far as the should you back or should you not, the short version of this is Arcane Games, who have had an interesting history as a company. Arcane Studio, I should say. This Arcane Studio has had an interesting history as a company. Their first few games were incredible in terms of the miniature production value, but were generally panned in terms of the rest of the production value, and were somewhat criticized as far as the gameplay itself, or being knockoffs or ripoffs of other properties, and just being slightly adjusted to being their own thing. And so for their first few games, definitely had a lot of people who were interested in the bling aspect of the games, but also a lot of critical feedback around their games. But since then, they've also made a big change in terms of how they approach the gaming hobby. They've always been both a miniatures company as well as a terrain and all those extras company, and so they've given you both, and they very much have. They have an incredible production quality across the board. Their production is generally ramped up in terms of not just the miniatures, which has always been amazing, but their tokens, their cars, their terrain, everything they have now is on par with what you'd expect. But additionally, some of their more recent games, they've taken it to the next level as far as what they deliver as a company, and overall I think we can expect better games from them in general. Now, they haven't been doing this that long as far as the newer games. I think the newer games are going to be Wolfenstein, and then we had Master of the Universe, which isn't really out yet, and then we have Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the board game, are a part of their more recent, newer attempts or breaches or ventures into the board game space. And so overall, it still will take time to see how the actual games hold up as far as their quality, and whether they work for you and deliver the experience you want. The big thing you're going to want to wonder here is, this is a game that's basically giving you a Mage Knight-esque experience. It's very much giving you that kind of general gameplay feel, but it will be different. If you've played Mage Knight, if you've played Euthia, you're going to see strong levels of similarities between these games, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Those are games that have worked. Both of them have worked for a lot of people, and so more of that is not necessarily a bad thing. The question is, what does this do for your collection? Does it do more for you? Does it not? Because at the end of the day, you're paying anywhere between $79 to $200 to get your hands on Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the board game, and if you're going to do that only so you could just pick and play Mage Knight on the side, well, then this game isn't doing you any favors, and you want to take that into account as you try to figure out if this is a game for you or not. But past that, the game itself will hold its value. The pledges will hold its value. All those disclaimers I gave you about, Arcan's past and, where they are as a company, as well as whether this is a game you will or won't pick up off your shelf. At the end of the day, if you're wondering about these things, the game will do fine as far as holding its value. Their games have so far in the past, both their originals as well as their new ones. The originals haven't held up over time, but they did so initially, as well as, Wolfenstein initially held its value just fine, and I believe this one, combined with the, 19,000 backers and the cost point on this game, the cost point is not that bad. You're talking about $200 for the all-in for multiple expansions over here, and the day where we're looking at, games like Elden Ring showing up for $450, and I'm not criticizing that. It's a whole balance about what and why and how and all those things, but at the end of the day, in a market in which crowdfunding is getting more and more expensive, this seems to be reasonably priced, all things considered. Reasonably priced is still expensive. You still have to decide if this is a game for you, but the $200 for the all-in, the amount of stretch goals and content you're getting with the Azure Pledge, all these extras that have slowly been unlocked. I didn't really heavily scroll through the stretch goals. We can do that briefly if we scroll down over here. Just tons of things that are slowly being unlocked over here. If we go through over here, stretch goals, the tower expansion unlocked, the treasure chest. We have the more cars and miniatures and cards and miniatures and the campaign and miniatures and Enter the Necropolis and miniatures and cards and miniatures and cards and miniatures are scrolling through page after page after page. All of these stretch goals, many of them for the Azure Pledge specifically. There's going to be a lot of content here, and a lot of that content is exclusive, and you combine that with the demand of the IP and Arcan's production quality and the general feedback on the game itself. I think overall this is one that is a very safe back as far as whether it's a game that will or won't work for you. If it doesn't work for you, I think for the most part you'll have no problem selling it or getting rid of it on the secondhand market just fine. So overall, as far as Heroes of Might and Magic, short version of it is Arcan Studios has come a long way as a company. They've generally been doing a lot of solid games, solid productions. I think the production quality in this will be incredible. I think the gameplay will be solid on the low end and great on the high end. I think it is a game that will totally hold its value, and all of that does not mean it's a game for you. That more comes down to where this fits in your collection, who are you playing it with, at what player count, and what games are you more or less likely to be picking or not picking alongside Heroes of Might and Magic 3. So the should you back it is, yes, it's a safe back. Whether it's for you or not, that's a different question you'll have to decide for yourself. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. As always, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.